public policy and the always menacing specter of populism, Paraguay has chosen a different path, one of quiet but profound transformation. As I remarked earlier today, my country has learned the lesson that there are no easy routes, no free lunches for attaining development. No, only the arduous and at a time very painful path of reform can yield prosperity. This is why in the last 20 years we have been working very hard, in silence and with unwavering commitment to make Paraguay a model of economic stability, institutional reform, and also an economy that is at the same time 100% green, truly sustainable. Paraguay is a country that is proud of its glorious history but does not dwell in the past. The future is bright and full of promises, and we will conquer it. For too long, my nation has carried the weight of misconceptions and outdated perceptions. But Paraguay is not a sleepy Arcadia anymore, a slumbering backwater, an isolated island surrounded by land, as the great Paraguayan writer Augusto Roa Basto once called it. The Paraguay of today is a completely different story. It is a hidden gem, a vibrant economy, destined to take the place in the international arena. We have built our institutions brick by brick, strengthening our democracy election after election, and modernize our economy step by step, not with grandiose declarations, but with persistent actions and a steadfast grip on public policies. Our recent attainment of investment grade is thus the consequence, and at the same time the most precious evidence of these years of toil and hard work. We have chosen the different path, and that has made all the difference. Today, as I share our perspective on economic perspective in the region, I will also very briefly tell you about this journey, about how a nation often overlooked has quietly become one of Latin America's most stable democracy and resilient democracy. Distinguidas autoridades.
Distinguished authorities, it's a real honor to be able to attend this meeting on the Latin American economic outlook. This document isn't just a set of figures and analysis. It really bears witness to our ability to think together. It's a real roadmap for our future. Let me give you my own vision of how we got to this point and where we should head for now as a region. Globalization started at the end of last century, where there was a lot of enthusiasm and a shared objective. The world that had seen two dreadful world wars was seeking a path towards stability and cooperation through two fundamental pillars: this multilateral institutions and global open markets. But today, the idea of globalization is in crisis. We see the emergence of protectionism, nationalism, and a number of individualist behaviors in economic terms. And I think that there are three major crises that have led to this major shift. The first was the financial crisis of 2008. Not only did it affect global financial markets, but it undermined trust in the very financial system. It was tantamount to the Great Depression that led to a number of vulnerabilities in our interconnected financial system. The second shock was the structural decrease of the Chinese economy. It had two-figure growth, and China was the engine of global growth. But with a slowdown in China, the whole dynamic of world trade was affected. The third shock, quite clearly, was the COVID-19 pandemic. It had a huge human toll, of course, but it also led to huge economic disruption. It paralyzed value chains and it exposed our vulnerabilities. These different disruptions led to political attitudes that went against globalization, against the opening of our economies and global trade, very often with populist promises that undermined the vision of an interconnected world. This new reality is difficult for Latin America. It's difficult for small countries. Big economies can afford to isolate their economies, but we need access to markets. Our region is faced with a paradox. We are important for the global future, but we're also very vulnerable every time there is a shock. Latin America and the Caribbean have 60% of global biodiversity. We have clean energy, and we are also important for food supply chains. Therefore, as the world seeks to diversify their value chains, our region offers resources and offers stability and is committed to democratic values. But we must recall that at the same time, as a region, we are dependent on the good health of the more developed countries and their markets. Every time there is a crisis, Latin America and the Caribbean suffer. And this is why we cannot remain indifferent. We believe that faced with these challenges, we need to go back to basics. What does this mean? We need to look at the basis of the economy and try to see how we can grow. We need macroeconomic stability. This is absolutely key. When the pandemic started 5 years ago, we saw that countries used monetary policy and fiscal policy to try to face the economic consequences of the pandemic. But many countries have not yet been able to normalize the situation after this pandemic. Paraguay understands what the impact of these crises is. Our history has been affected by 3 major tragedies. First of all, the War of the Triple Alliance against Brazil, Argentina, and Uruguay. 2/3 of the population was wiped out. Our economy was in ruins. Our country became a huge graveyard. Then the war with Bolivia, the Chaco War. Again, we were threatened as a nation, and this hindered our economic progress. And thirdly, a long authoritarian winter where military dictatorships stifled any attempt to build democratic institutions that would be inclusive, as Robinson, the Nobel Prize, described. So, in Paraguay, we know crises, we know difficulties, but we also know how to rise from our ashes. Over the past 20 years, we have seen an extraordinary transformation in my country. Paraguay is an example of macroeconomic stability and sustainable growth in the region, and also a model for the world. Why not? We have a rate of growth of 2.1% for this year, and we hope that we will have a rate of growth of 4% next year. This isn't an isolated figure. Over the past 20 years, our country has seen continuous growth from 2003 to 2023. We have had an average rate of growth of 3.6% annually. This is a lot more than neighboring countries. This shows how our country has been very resilient, even faced with global shocks. We have a very strong basis, a very low rate of debt. We have controlled inflation that's under the regional average, and a good monetary policy that leads to stability without undermining development. So, with resolve, we have built robust and transparent institutions. Our democracy, that has celebrated its 35th birthday this year, has been able to be shored up and strengthened with each public debate, with each election, and we have become a model in the region for clean and transparent elections. We've also modernized our regulatory framework with open government. We have one of the best transparency laws in the world, and we have a system for public procurement that has also become a model in terms of public procurement. The solidity of our financial system has been key, of course, in this process, in this transformation. Our banking sector is a pillar of stability and growth. Adopting new financial technologies and the modernization of our payment system shows that we are ready to evolve. In terms of the environment, Paraguay is also a model. Our energy mix is one of the cleanest and most sustainable energy mixes in the world. We have 100% green, clean and renewable energy, thanks to the electric grid that we share with our neighboring countries. We have 40% of our forest coverage that is preserved, and our soja production is only grown on land that has not been deforested. We use the most friendly agricultural techniques available. We also adopted an emission of green and sustainable bonds, and this shows that we are fully committed to ensure economic growth that is sustainable. Therefore, it is no surprise that in July 2024 we were able to get investment grade from the rating agencies, and I think this is a real recognition of our prudent economic management and our macroeconomic stability. This achievement is not a coincidence. We worked hard for decades, and we try to overcome political disputes.
Friends and colleagues, our presence here today at the OECD is not due to chance, no. Paraguay has long been on the difficult path to becoming a respectable country with solid and inclusive institutions, a vibrant democracy, and a stable macroeconomic system which we believe can serve as a model for others. We aspire to become members of this distinguished organization because we share its more fundamental values: commitment to democracy, to transparency, to the rule of law, and to sound public policies. Thus, we are not here seeking prestige or a favorable new headlines. For us, joining the OECD is much, much more. It is the culmination of that arduous path to modern, transparent, and inclusive public policy that began more than 20 years ago. With steadfast actions and not mere words, Paraguay has chosen the path less traveled, and that, my friend, has made all the difference. Thank you so much.
Gracias.
Thank you very much, President, sir. I'm now going to give the floor to a different country for maybe another viewpoint. The Vice President of El Salvador, Mr. Felix Ulloa.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Un saludo a los miembros de la mesa.
Greetings to all my colleagues. Salvador is a member of the Development